Welcome everybody to another episode of Live Stream Lunch. My name is Shane Cullis. Today we have Rishi Bandhu of Bandhu LLP, who is going to give us some information on, yes, paid sick leave. We know this is a hot subject right now. So Rishi, how are you today? Thanks for joining us.
Shane, I'm doing great. It's nice to be back with you.
Yeah, it's great. And we're always glad to have you because you give us some great tidbits, and today's going to be an interesting one. So let's get right into it. The first question I have is, how does the new paid sick leave affect Oakville employers?
Definitely a hot button topic. So just briefly, in terms of what it is, employees are now entitled to a maximum of 3 paid sick days in relation to COVID-related illness and issues. So it's the lesser of $200 per day or their regular rate of pay. It goes back or retroactive to April 19th. And importantly, the employer can actually apply to the WSIB to have that cost reimbursed to them, but they have to do so within 120 days of the date of the employee's leave. Now, in terms of who it applies to all employers that are regulated by the Employment Standards Act or Ontario law. So essentially anybody that the Employment Standards Act applies to. Where it doesn't apply is with respect to federally regulated employers. So for example, banks, transportation companies, telecommunication companies, they don't fall within this sick leave entitlement.
Okay. Now you mentioned WSIB there, so I'm going to flip ahead for a second here. Does the WSIB protection extend to remote working?
So that's a really interesting question, isn't it? Because for more than a year now, a lot of people have been working from home. And as we know, the WSIB provides benefits to employees who are injured at the workplace. So it's a very interesting question. The answer is that the WSIB covers injuries that happen at the regular workplace. Now, the home has become the regular workplace for many people. So as a result of that, the WSIB can in fact award benefits to someone who sustains injuries at home. However, the line can be blurred because we're working at home. So the WSIB is going to examine the facts and circumstances of every single case that comes before it to determine if there's entitlement.
I would imagine they would have to, because I'm constantly stubbing my toe in this house. So not sure if they want me putting that one through. Okay, so here's a question I know our members are going to want to know the answer to, or get some guidance on. If an employer is already paying sick leave to their employees, is the new sick leave on top of that?
No. So the good news, it isn't. It's incorporated. So if the employer is already providing paid sick leave entitlement, then it's providing what's called a greater right or benefit. And so these 3 sick day entitlements would be encompassed within that. The only exception would be if the employee has already exhausted their paid sick day entitlement. The legislation is not entirely clear on this point, but it looks like they would be still entitled to those 3 days in those circumstances where they've already exhausted that paid sick leave entitlement. Okay.
And what are an employer's obligations to an employee affected by COVID, I say apart from the new paid sick leave?
Right. So it's important to note that these new paid sick leave provisions, they tie in with the existing infectious disease emergency leave provisions in the Employment Standards Act. Those were introduced last March when this pandemic kicked off, for lack of a better phrase. And essentially, employees are entitled to take time off if they're personally affected by COVID, or if they have family members affected by COVID, or there's school closures or daycare closures. And so that is an unpaid leave. It's strictly in relation to COVID, and it'll last for as long as the need lasts.
Oh, okay. Okay. Speaking of home needs, going back to more along the extended remote working, what are an employer's health and safety obligations with respect to remote working?
Very important question as well, and ties in earlier with the question regarding WSIB as well, I think. It's important for employers to note that even though employees are not in the workplace, they still should have a safety policy that applies to remote working. So, taking care of things like ergonomics, and then defining when, where, and how the employee should be engaged and work for the employer is important, I think, right? So having stipulations around, listen, don't take a call when you're walking the dog, or don't take a call when you're making tea at the stove. Those types of things are important and proactive steps that I think a prudent employer would take in devising a remote working policy.
Okay, that is certainly something I've not thought of before. So do you have any of this information, say, listed on your website? Because I never would have thought about, I'm walking the dog, taking a business call, and dog goes one way, I go the other way and get hurt. I hadn't thought about the effects of that could be in the workplace or on the employer. Is there a place like a resource that we can go to? Is it,
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure that we have this specific information, but we have a ton of other resources on our website. Workplaceadvocacy.ca or blpc.ca. We've got a blog, an HR 101 FAQ section, and a bunch of articles that I'm regularly publishing and posting onto the website.
Okay, well, Rishi, that is great. Okay, so you did actually get me thinking quite a bit more than I thought you were going to on this one. So I appreciate it very much. I know our members appreciate the information that you're giving us right now. We've gotten lots of great feedback on your stuff. So hoping we'll get you back up here again. And again, we can get you at website is, say that one more time.
blpc.ca.
Perfect. All right, folks. And if you do have any questions or would like to get a hold of Rishi, you're obviously welcome to contact me, and I can do a quick intro for you. I'm happy to take care of that. But as you know, you can contact him directly. Thank you very kindly. Enjoy your day, folks. Cheers.
Thanks, Shane.